Hi kids, Bishop Vedder here. Coming to you, I'm still your bishop. I'm going to read you another book. Paolo, Emperor of Rome by Mac Barnett. All right, Rome. I was in Rome. I lived in Rome 10 years. 4 years as a student, kids, and then 6 years I taught there. So we're going to see what Paolo's up to. Rome, the eternal city, a place of fountains, food, and music, a place of chaos and beauty, above all, a place of freedom. But not for Paolo. Paolo lived confined to a small hair salon on Via Torino. Often he would press his nose against the window, captivated by the bustle on the sidewalks. "Get away from there, Paolo," Signora Pianostrada would shout. "You're smudging the glass." All night Paolo dreamed of the sweet life in Rome, and all day he did the same. There was not much else he could do in the salon. "Lazy Paolo," said Signora. Sometimes the Signora would open the door and sweep a pile of ladies' hair out onto the street. Paolo would run over, his nails clicking on the tile floor, but the Signora would block the exit by simply lifting her foot. On these occasions, Paolo would poke his nose outside and, sniffing, smell all the smells of Rome. Salty, sour, meaty, flowery. That was all Paolo got of liberty. A whiff. But, one glorious day there was a breach. The widow, Garibaldi, arriving for her weekly appointment, failed to shut the door behind her. Paolo waited for the mistake to be discovered, but already Signora was putting curlers in the widow's hair. Should he? Could he? He did. Paolo was free. And was the city all he imagined? It was more. Bridges and plazas and tall cathedrals, ruined temples and busy cafes, and statues of humans and gods and horses, statues of lions that shot streams of water from their mouths, and high on a hill, topping a column, a statue of a proud she-wolf, the mother of Rome. "How like this wolf I am," said Paolo, "but whereas she is made of stone, I'm made of muscles, and can go everywhere I please. But wherever should I go?" Of course, the Colosseum. Paolo stood on the ground of the great arena. There, thousands of years ago, men and dogs were kept in cages and forced to fight. How beautiful to build such a towering marvel," said Paolo. "How cruel to fill it with barbarianism." The little dog's soul swelled up, so he thought his ribs would burst. In the middle of the city, Paolo found a field full of ruins and lounging cats. It seemed a good spot for a nap. But no longer had Paolo entered than a huge tabby bounded over and challenged him. "What business do you have here, little dog?" And it was true. The cat was bigger than Paolo. "I'm here to have a nap. This place is for the cats," said the tabby. "Nap elsewhere." Paolo puffed out his chest. "I will not." The cat hissed and swiped her paws. Pain spread across Paolo's face. He had been cut, and deeply. But rather than flee, Paolo stood and barked. The cat, frightened by Paolo's indifference to injury, disappeared into the grass. Paolo hopped from column to column till he stood upon the tallest. "I am Paolo," he said. "The biggest among you has scratched my cheek, but I did not flinch. Will any other cat challenge me?" The cats were cowed. Paolo curled up and slept. He was awoken by the sound of swelling music. "I would like to hear more of that," Paolo said. He climbed down the columns and sneaked into an opera house. Around him rose arches, as the great Colosseum. But here people watched while a man sang a sad song. When the singer finished, the crowd applauded. They shouted, "Bravo!" and threw down roses. "Must feel wonderful to be adored," said Paolo. "I would like it if one day people shouted for me." The opera had made Paolo hungry. He threw himself back into the madness of the city, wandering down alleys till he found himself eating from a trash can behind the finest restaurant in Rome. "Truly," said Paolo, "I'm living my life." But Paolo's supper was interrupted by the sound of snarls, a pack of ragged curs who crept up behind him. "This is our street," said their leader, who was called Brutus. Paolo laughed. "The streets are for everyone." The dogs considered this. Brutus asked, "Who are you to say so?" "I'm Paolo, that escaped from his prison and is like the wolf come to life. I've drunk from the mouth of a lion. I have stared down the cats who live in the ruins, and I will lead you, if you like." The decision was unanimous. All voted for Paulo, even from Brutus. It was unprecedented. That night, Rome belonged to the dogs. There they are. They're going all over the place. When the sun rose, the pack scrounged up a delicious breakfast. The sun streamed through the building so that the streets appeared pink. Paulo's heart was at peace. But what's this commotion? 6 nuns had fallen into the Trevi fountain. The crowd in the plaza, stupefied, looked at their awful splashings. "How terrible," said Paolo. "We must do something." "Of course it is terrible," said the dogs. "But what concern is it of ours?" This was outrageous. If heroism was not to be found in the pack, then Paulo must act alone. He leapt into the water, and careful not to tear their habits, pulled the nuns to safety one by one. The Carabinieri, arriving at the scene with several life preservers, were astonished to find Paulo had done their work for them. The captain was at first put out, ashamed to be outshined by a small dog. But the cheers of the crowd were contagious, and soon even the proud officer joined in. "Bravo, Paulo," he shouted. "I'll see you receive a medal for valor." Paulo got more than a medal. In the afternoon, he was granted an audience with the Pope. The Pope scratched Paulo's ears. "I should make you a saint," he said, and sour cardinal frowned. "Your Holiness," he whispered, "it's impossible. He's still living, and besides, he's a dog." "Surely," said the Pope, "we could make an exception." The cardinal shook his head. No matter, Paulo was given a fine room in the papal apartments. Each night the chef prepared for him some new feast. His bed was made with satin sheets and piled high with goose-down pillows. The walls were covered with paintings by old masters. Paulo studied the pictures and was impressed by their beauty, but he preferred to look out at his high window, from which he could see all of Rome sprawled out before him. The paintings were lovely, but they did not move. The city was always stirring. So after some weeks, Paulo made his decision. He bid farewell to his grand apartment. The guards saluted him as he passed through their gate into the city. The little dog trotted down winding streets, his nails clicking on the cobblestones, back to the tumult. For walls are walls, even when papered in gold and hung with Caravaggios. And Paulo's proud spirit was boundless. He could not be contained. The end. What do you think of that? It's a good little story about Rome. Hopefully one day, kids, you get a chance to go to Rome. I hope you do. It's a beautiful city. It's called the Eternal City. And that's where our Pope lives, the Vicar of Christ on earth. And many, many saints are buried there. So that's my prayer for you, is one day you get to be a pilgrim and go to the holy city, the eternal city of Rome. God bless you, kids. Know my prayers. Pray for me. Bye now.